Welcome to the Exploring New England podcast with Ryan Zipp, where each week I will be talking about what makes this historic region such an amazing place to enjoy. From the scenic views to road trip ideas to where to grab the best eats and much more. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Exploring New England podcast with me, Ryan Zipp. Last week, it was a little bit of a different type of vibe to it in that I did not adventure anywhere. The weekend before the show was good to catch up at home. As much as I love to be out traveling, it was nice to get a reset, experience a rainy morning, catch up on a few things. But of course, not long after, I started to get working on where to possibly go the next weekend, which will be when viewing this the last weekend. And I didn't really have much set in stone, honestly, and was just monitoring the weather a bit. When, summer New England pops up, as much as I hate the big crowds and, the real popular places, I can't help but try to sneak back to Cape Cod as much as possible if, situations work out and can find decent lodging, etc. And so I started kind of zeroing in on the Cape as a possibility. And one thing I had wanted to do that I didn't get to last year was go on a whale watch. Been on, I think 2020 I went on one out of Gloucester, and then 2022 I did one out of the Cape, out of Barnstable, Hyannis. And last year I was trying to, but it just kept raining last year, like it did almost every weekend. But every day I wanted to go, it was just stormy and just kind of threw off the vibes. Not that you can't still go if it's raining, but so it was kind of on my list, and the summer's flying by. So I looked, and the weather started to look better, and decided to plan the whale watch for Monday, and booked a few different last minute inns in Hyannis, not too far from it, for Saturday and Sunday night. So it ended up being a great trip. So I figure I'll kind of do a recap on that, and just keep the summer vibes in New England here going. I'm sure the Cape is a spot that many of you have been to, whether it's once or many times over the years, as I know a lot of people kind of grew up going there, even if it was like once a summer. They had a family trip, and they had traditions and everything, and others might have had a relative or still do with property there, so they can go a bit more often. History there goes way back as far as being this, summer vacation destination for people from all over the country, but especially all around New England. Where I was going to focus pretty much, the majority of this trip, it's talked about the whale watch, obviously, is out of Hyannis. In actuality, it's hard to know, like, what's a town, what's a village, what's part of this. There's Dennisport, Yarmouthport. There's like a lot of different similar names, and then areas around. And it's funny to realize that like Hyannis isn't even a separate town. The town is Barnstable, and then there's a number of villages, 7 total villages inside, including one that's actually the village of Barnstable inside of the town of Barnstable, and that's kind of the northern part where the whale watch goes out of. But Hyannis, and then Hyannisport is actually part of Hyannis, I believe. Centerville, Austerville, and others as far as villages in there. So it's interesting to think about, Hyannis is not a separate town technically. And Barnstable in general, it's definitely the largest community, I believe, on Cape Cod, with about 50,000 residents. So also has the ferry line out to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. So a lot of people, obviously, you're going to those islands. You go out of there. You could also do Martha's Vineyard out of Woods Hole. So there's a few, not the only spot to get out there, but definitely a popular one. Right downtown there, tons of restaurants, shops and such, and obviously beaches like anywhere on the Cape. So on Saturday, I closed up my store at 4 o'clock, got on the road right away, and saw with traffic I was going to be able to make it in time for sunset, depending, no idea what it was going to do, what the sky was going to do. But I knew I'd make it in time, so decided to not go to where I was staying first and just head right to a destination. Um, with the Cape, depending, obviously time of year matters a little bit, but from the northern shore areas, you always have a decent shot at sunset out one direction. Some with more interesting compositions and scenes than others, but I've have a handful that I've gone to probably multiple times on trips over the years. Um, this time I just decided on one called Mayflower Beach. Definitely a larger beach up in that direction. That's actually in Dennis, and would be about 20-25 minutes from the general Hyannis area and where I would be staying. So not too far. Um, During the day, like any spots, it's pay to park for the beach there, especially weekend days. But a lot of days just in the summer, it's crazy. People get there early, and it could be anywhere 20, 25, $30 and so on for parking in a lot of these beaches. So just something to think about as well. Um, but I believe I don't know if there's an exact time because some are different towns, but a lot of them, when it gets to like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, kind of later in the afternoon, early evening, they stop charging. So at that point, you can go if you just want to go for a late beach visit, or like I do a lot, you're going there for the end of the day, golden hour, the good light and sunset, obviously, and if you can, hang out a little bit afterwards. So there are ways to go without paying big money for parking, unless you do want to go and do a typical beach day. But so I made it down, and that's part of the area where there's pretty significant change when it's low tide, and talk a little bit more at the end too about another spot about the Brewster Flats. But this area is in the same general kind of vibe as that, where I was able to walk out pretty far from the beach when I got there, because low tide I think was maybe an hour before sunset. Got in position and kind of was walking around. It was just nice to not be driving after, I don't know, 3 hour drive or whatever it was, and just to enjoy the vibes and the ocean, the waves, etc. So, but there was a thick lower cloud bank that was coming in and blocked the sun pretty good. So knew at that point there wasn't going to be much of a sunset or color or anything, but it was nice. It's been super hot here at home, as most of New England. So out there, just to have a decent breeze and have your feet in the water was definitely a welcome change from what I've been dealing with back home for that previous week, pretty much. So after that, I booked a last minute. The Sunday night I booked a day before. This one I kind of booked last minute. Was trying to find something in the general area, and as close as I can be to the water without paying an arm and a leg. So came across one spot right there in Hyannis called the Sea Breeze Inn Beach Rentals. And it's definitely one of those spots where it's like no frills, no like front desk or anything. Kind of just more old school, simple. But a 5 minute or less walk to one of the beaches. And that beach there is Keys Memorial Beach. And that was like right at the end of the road where the place was on. So totally fine. Again, nothing fancy in any shape or form, but for the price that I was able to pay for a Saturday in the summer last minute, definitely, more about location there. And that got the job done. So it was also another reason for staying there, besides being near the beach, was Hyannis in general, with like the history and specific houses and properties there are known for the famous Kennedy family. JFK, obviously former president, and his whole family. They started going down there. His dad started renting a house there, I believe in the 1920s. I'm not a Kennedy expert or like political history expert or anything, so just what I had kind of read about here and kind of heard from others in terms of their, their ties to the Cape. But I believe he started I think there was like 9 kids they had with the family, with his dad there and his siblings, and they started renting a house, and then in later 1920s they bought it, would grow to like expand it for all the family. So that property's still there, and another house got bought right next door, adjacent to the property. And I believe Ethel Kennedy still lives there. That's Bobby Kennedy's wife. She's 96, I believe. So, again, not an expert on the Kennedy history, but I think I'm getting it right there. And then, right like around the corner, same neighborhood, JFK had bought a house. And now I believe Ted Kennedy and his wife live there. So it was kind of a fence up there, but was able to see the other house. Didn't want to like stop and be weird, so just kind of kept walking. But yeah, there's nowhere to really park in this neighborhood. Just a nice. It's not like anything over the top, especially compared to a lot of other of the Cape. But there's really nowhere to park, so you can kind of drive through, but it's hard to really walk and enjoy the neighborhood. And kind of if you're into that and want to just see where the Kennedys had vacationed, and still Kennedys are still there to the day. But it's not like a tourist friendly spot where you can pull over and park or anything. So this spot right here was only going to be like 20-minute or less walk. So I thought that would be cool to just walk around there. I had never walked around that particular spot, so it was new to me just to um, check it out, get a few photos and everything. And right down there, when you get to like the Kennedy compound, they call it. There's also the Hyannis Port Yacht Club is right there, and then like kind of adjacent opposites them, the Hyannis Port Golf Club. So definitely the vibe and kind of area that you would think of when you think of them there, vacationing and spending time with them all growing up. And there's actually a JFK museum in Hyannis on Main Street as well. So there's a lot of things. It was a park as well. So, if you're into that U.S. history, it's another thing to add into the Cape, not just being a summer vacation thing. So you can go there and experience a little of that, learn a little bit about history. I believe I read too, if it was like 12 years ago, Taylor Swift was dating one of the Kennedy kids. I think he was a few years younger than her. So she was hanging out there for the summer and bought one of the neighbors' houses for like 3 million or something. And then after they broke up later that year, she sold it for like 4. She made like a profit and basically just bought a house to have it there for the summer. So, pretty cool. So between, she had that, she has her house in Watch Hill, and not sure what other ties she might have to New England, but so that's the little Taylor Swift Kennedy connection to Hyannis as well. Um, but it was a very suitable spot, like I said, as far as staying there, just being close to everything, not having to worry about where to park your car. You could just walk down to the beach. So definitely something to look into if you want to go. And an inn or a hotel might be a little more expensive, but it is walking distance from one of the beaches. So, you will save 25, $30 per day in parking by staying at the hotel, and you're also just closer to those beach vibes in general. Sometimes could see the water from it. So it might be worth it. Obviously, a lot of times it's a lot more expensive and you can't justify just drive to the beach or do whatever. But just something to think about, and so that worked out pretty good for me. I ended up eating at the Portside Tavern that night. It was a bit later, and this is the first night. Sorry, when I checked in, because a lot of the other spots the kitchens close at like 9. So Portside Tavern was a good spot with like a late night menu. They had like an outside bar area to have a drink as well. But yeah, and then on Sunday morning is when I did the walk out to Hyannisport and the whole Kennedy area. But and then I would be staying in a separate spot on Sunday night. So after walking around a bit, went back to the hotel, kind of showered, got ready, and checked out. I ended up going to a coffee shop to kind of get a breakfast sandwich, get a coffee, and ended up breaking the laptop out to do some editing, catching up on some editing a bit. It was pretty hot midday. The sun was out. It was muggy, and I didn't have a hotel room at the moment. I was in between, so wasn't just gonna sit out anywhere and fry or pay to sit in a parking lot or anything. So I just kind of chilled there for a little bit, and then I made my way over to the next spot. And this place I liked a lot better. It was still another one of those old school, like basic vibe hotel, but very clean. Very cool owner. This guy Martin from Ireland, and that spot's called the Cape Cod Ocean Manor, and that's only like a few streets over from the first one. It's right actually on Ocean Street, and you're right near like 2 minute walk, 3 minute walk from Veterans Memorial Park and the beach there. Next to it's also the JFK Memorial, and then the other way down to the water, like a 5-6 minute walk, is Calmus Park Beach, which is actually like a legit big beach. So I definitely recommend this inn to kind of stay at. The prices are very reasonable for any time of year, and they do like basic breakfast in the morning, like bagel, muffin, cereals, fruit, etc. So nice little breakfast, and the vibes were great. Love the old school, Cape vibes they had going on. But again, it was one of those. It was about the location and just value for me in, for where I wanted to stay. So that was the better of the two. They didn't have a room for Saturday night. That's why I stayed at the other spot the night before. So that was the Seabreeze Inn Beach Rentals, which was suitable, like I said, for the price, and then Cape Cod Ocean Manor, which was around the same price, and that would be my first choice if I went back, especially off season. He's got some great rates, so definitely check that out. That's right in Hyannis, and the beach down there that was cool, the Calmus Park Beach. Really nice beach. Didn't have many people at it. The wind was ripping. One side of the beach, a lot of the guys do like the windsurfing at. It was cool to watch them. Was snapping a few pictures. Nice beach, but definitely not the finest of sand. Had a lot of bits of shells and everything in it, but that was the only thing I could find to complain about it. Not that I'm like a beach guy or anything, but just for your information there. As far as I know, some people are picky about their beaches, but they had two general kind of spots on the beach. One was kind of looking back into a harbor with a bunch of boats. They have a full snack bar there, facilities as well, bathrooms and all that. So definitely a good spot just to go. As far as a not like one of the main too crazy beaches that I've seen. And also, if you stay at a spot like this right down the road, you could just walk right to it and not worry about parking. So that's how I spent Sunday. I went back down to the beach at night for sunset. It was like in between maybe being crazy stormy vibes because I was watching what was happening back here in Connecticut. But it never stormed anything dramatic, and then no light broke through for sunset. So it wasn't anything dramatic either way there, which is always a bummer. But again, you're just standing there on the sand with your feet in the water. So I didn't have too many complaints. That night, I got back a little earlier, made it over to the Black Cat Tavern. They have the tavern there. This is right on Main Street, over by Main Street, I'm sorry, in Hyannis. And they have the Black Cat Ocean Shack next door. So the Ocean Shack had a bar out back. You could sit outside, so I just walked back there because it was kind of crazy. Wait for tables and stuff. But yeah, so had a meal there, nothing too crazy. And then kind of just went back to relax and enjoy my only and last night there in the Cape Cod Ocean Manor Inn. So, and then the next day on Monday, the main event was the whale watch, but that wasn't until 2 p.m. So it was nice to have just a real slow morning. Walk down to the beach again, just kind of relaxed a bit, and then actually went to the same coffee shop again to reset, catch up on some emails and such before heading north to Barnstable and where the whale watch was. So, like I said before, done a couple whale watches in my adult life, one out of Gloucester and then one out of this same spot 2 years back. So, seemed like they were getting good action, checking up on their social media for the last month. So I was hoping, as you never know what could happen, you could see a ton of cool stuff, or it could be just a slow day or slow time of day when you go out. But luckily, we ended up having a really good day. Believe that the whole thing from when you leave to get back is about 4 hours. Just so if you're looking to possibly go out or plan it, that's the time frame you're looking at from leaving to getting back in. They also run, there's a few different companies, at least two out of P-Town. So if you happen to be staying more north on the Cape, there's a few there. I forget the exact names of them. And then the only one is out of Barnstable there. There's obviously one out of Plymouth, some other areas as well as far as not just on the Cape. But this one I've gone on a couple times now, and it's been great. So definitely don't have anything bad to say about it. So I'd recommend it. Um, we didn't even get too far out. We not too far from the shores of P Town, and we started having activity of humpbacks. Ended up seeing, I believe, 4 to 5 different humpbacks on on this trip. I know sometimes it's hard to tell specific ones at a time unless they show their flukes, the tail, because those, as I've learned from these, are like fingerprints basically. So each whale's fluke has unique patterns and coloring and patterns and stuff that's like our fingerprints. So that's how they've been able to tell, and they give them all names. Some are numbers, and they can keep track of them. And I believe one of them they know they've been kind of had an eye on in that area for 40 plus years, which is really cool. And they know all the calves that she's had with her, and they have names for all of them, obviously. But there was times we saw 3 humpbacks together. Even one time we saw 4 together. I guess they said they're not typically a like pod type whale or anything, so it was neat to see. Didn't see him doing any like really feeding this time. On the last one I went on, I did see him feeding. So again, it just depends on luck and time of day. One of them did jump and breach up in the air, like you see those dramatic pictures, but it was like way off to the right, and you never know where to look. You're kind of trying to look at the left or the right. You almost have to just pick a side and go with it. But I don't think I would have gotten it anyway, so I kind of caught the end of it smashing down as I looked over as people kind of screamed. So that's rare for it to happen, and then to get a shot of it is even more, hard to do. So can't be too mad about it. Overall, didn't get any like great shots, I don't think, but just enjoying it was amazing being around them. We also had fin whale, which they're generally around 70 feet long as the average. It's the second largest whale as well as the second largest animal on the planet to only the blue whale, way up to like 100,000 pounds or more, which is like kind of wild to think about. So obviously we just saw a bit of the top of the whale. That was it. That one wasn't jumping out of the water or anything. So fin whale, we had I think at least 5 humpbacks, maybe more, and then minke whales as well. A number of them. They're kind of slightly smaller than a humpback. They don't do the whole like breaching, jumping thing, and when they dive, they don't put the fluke up in the air like the humpbacks do. But that was a different kind. Saw some seals, they're always cute, and had a group of white-sided dolphins, which is probably I had never seen them before. There was, I don't know how many there were, maybe a dozen or so, kind of swimming with the boat to the left and to the right of us, and they were kind of diving, and there was even 1 or 2 tiny like younger baby ones. So those guys were really cool. They almost look like cartoonish when you looked in. And I got some shots of them. It was hard because they're like facing away from you. So, and then to get the split moment, that like split second when they're out of the water, you don't know when they're jumping up. But so that was fun to see. And just, again, we didn't even have to go out too far. But a lot of times, no matter where you go out of, they go up to the Stellwagen Bank, it's called, which is like north of P-Town. And that's like, I believe is like the big drop off. So it's some deeper water, and a lot of them go there to feed. But there's been a lot of fish, I guess, even around that P-Town area. So we saw the boats from there across from us a number of times as well. And just a lot of other private boats and a few kind of large private yachts as well, docked and floating around. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. The water was calm that day. It wasn't like it was super like shaky, depending on how you are with boats and seasickness. But if you haven't done it in years or you've been thinking about doing one, definitely recommend it. This is the one out of Barnstable. There's a couple out of P-Town. So you can kind of mix it into a Cape trip. I think they go until September. So, but you'll have to check and see I believe they do a morning one and an afternoon one every day. So definitely check that out. Yeah, after that, I ended up, got back at about 6-ish. Didn't look like sunset was going to do anything, so I just kind of started my way home, 3-hour driving. Glad I did, so I didn't get home too late. But another spot I was actually going to go to for sunset the night before, if it looked like it would be something, I kind of mentioned earlier, is the Brewster Flats, which is kind of an area north of the town of Brewster, there, the water. But it's that area out there. It's the largest flats like that in all of North America. So at low tide, the water just goes out so crazy far that you can actually walk out a mile or more from shore during absolute low tide. I think it covers about 12,000 acres at low tide. This tidal flats area, making it the largest anywhere in North America, which is kind of crazy. So I think it's like 10 to 12 feet. The water depth rises. I read on it, so it's just a really cool phenomenon. We have Harvey's Beach here in Connecticut. It's a favorite of mine, and it's nowhere near that big, but it's one of those where at absolute low tide you can walk out really far, and it has a similar kind of ripples. And then at high tide, it's like there's no beach at all. So the Brewster Flats, there's like 4 or 5 beaches where you can go um, to get to them, or what is considered the flats. The time I went 2 years ago when I did the other whale watch, the same one, one of the Crosby Landing Beach was the one I went to, and was able to walk out well over half a mile. Didn't end up going further because sunset was kind of kicking in and didn't want to be too far from shore. One for light and also just getting some cool scenes as the sky was changing. But you could walk out, like I said before, close to a mile at some of them. So if you haven't done that, I recommend adding that in and kind of looking at the tide charts for Brewster, the harbor there, and see when it's going to be low tide near like the hour before sunset or so, or anytime around there, so you can get that end of the day, walk out as far as you want, and then make your way back and get the sunset with all these cool kind of grooves, and there's little pools that fill up and little rivers running through as the tide's making this dramatic change, and just really cool for photos. You get reflections, and yeah, it's just really neat to like look back and at the beach and the dunes, and then just super far away. So it's one of those things you just don't get to do everywhere. So I recommend that. That's the Brewster Flats, and a number of those beaches up there in the northern section there, the Cape, are great. Grays Beach is another one in Yarmouth. It's got that really long kind of boardwalk out there, and the sun generally is setting somewhere out there from left to right, depending on what time of year. So yeah, so that was a little kind of midsummer Cape visit, and there's not much more quintessential New England summer as Cape Cod. So as crazy busy as it is, luckily I usually go later on Saturday night, leave later on Monday, so I avoid the real crazy traffic, when everyone else is trying to get there and leave. So it works out, and if you search around enough, you could find some decent deals. And then it's always depending how close to the water do you want to stay. But I can't say enough about Cape Cod, Ocean Manor, and Hyannis. Like I said, owner was the nicest guy, and this isn't like an ad. They didn't pay me or anything. I paid for the room, but just loved it in the location where it was. Sometimes you just get those good vibes. So definitely recommend that. Check that out if you want to go to Hyannis. And I'm not sure what the next weekend's gonna hold. The weather's looking like it should be pretty good for Saturday night through Monday. Not sure what kind of remnants we're gonna get from this Debbie hurricane, tropical storm, whatever it'll be, making its way up. So we'll see. But check back in next week and see what I ended up doing.